Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we find ourselves in Panama City Beach, Florida. In our continuing quest to visit all of the Ripley's Believe It or Not, we have come to this sinking ship. But before it gets totally beneath the surface, we're going to climb aboard and see all the oddities they have to offer. Tag along.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
We are now inside the ship. This sign here says, "This way to the weird," so I think we're on the right track. First up, trying to escape this sinking ship, we have a 1936 Fiat. This entire thing is made of wood and hand-carved. There is an astonishing amount of detail in this car, and honestly, it looks like it's ready to drive right off. Well, besides the fact that it's currently sinking underwater. But that's okay, because wood is supposed to float, right? So who knows, maybe you could gas it up and float out of here. For those who may be trapped in a sinking ship without a wooden car, we have a couple of heroes that have stopped by. This is Iron Man and Captain America, the leaders of the Avengers, completely made out of sugar. And they've brought along their friend Spider-Man. Here we see him made out of spider webs. How very appropriate for the webhead. And rounding out our Avengers team, the mighty Thor himself, completely made out of spare car parts. I feel like with a team like this, we're definitely in good hands. Continuing on with some unusual art, we have this amazing matchstick boat of Lord Nelson's HMS Victory. This took the creator 3 years to complete. Next to that, in a very odd anti-smoking sculpture, we have Adolf Hitler, because if Nazis can't stop you from smoking, who can? And then a very lovely seashell bouquet. Just as pretty as any flower. Next to that, we have a marvelous display that talks about ships in a bottle and shows you some of the tiny tools used to create these floating vessels. And then, just for fun, a really big ship that was made out of leftover soup bones. I bet my dog would really like chewing on that. Of course, every Ripley's location has some matter of animal oddities, but here they have something very special and very cute. May I introduce you to Smidget the horse. A lot of horses have claimed to be the smallest in the world, but Smidget truly could take that title. She was born in 1979, and it wasn't long before she became a true star. Her extreme cuteness and extreme intelligence really endeared her to fans. She passed away in 1990, but will always be remembered. Keeping Smidget company, we have some very interesting sculptures here. Might be some familiar faces for you. Believe it or not, these are all created out of chewed gum. And then this seemingly stone bust, well, that's actually paper mache. Crazy, right? And another very fascinating piece of art is this rare German lithophane. It seems like just a regular sheet of glass, but once it's lit up from behind, all the detail starts to soak in. Here it is normal, and then when you add the light, bam! Look at all that shading. Very beautiful, and I am very glad we never lost this. Considering we're on a sinking ship out at sea, it makes sense there's a whole section of underwater oddities. Let's dive in. The first thing to do here is really dive into this wall of amazing ship-related stories, such as this tortoise boat. Look how crazy that thing looks. Once you've gotten your fill of ship stories, it's time to move on to some of the creatures of the deep. Now I know this king crab is supposed to look impressive, but all it really does is make me hungry. Don't get me wrong, those legs look really cool, but I bet they'd look even better on a plate. This giant clam almost makes you feel like you're a fish swimming around in an aquarium. Though they don't eat people, it can close with enough force to trap a leg or arm, so be careful if you're swimming by. Now these teeth, on the other hand, have no problem taking a bite out of anybody that happens to get close enough. There's plenty of mysterious creatures out there in the water, and you know we had to highlight one of our favorites, a genuine Fiji mermaid. Look how nice and polite this guy looks. I bet he'd be a very good friend. Being aboard a sinking ship definitely brings to mind other ships that have ended that way, and the most famous probably being the Titanic. They actually have an entire section here devoted to that doomed vessel. Let's see what they recovered. Now everybody's heard the story of the Titanic, but it really helps to see how big this ship truly was. It's almost impossible to fathom that this entire thing now rests at the bottom of the sea. It was truly a spectacular floating palace, and today, thanks to Celine Dion and Leonardo DiCaprio, everybody will always remember her name. Of course, considering the circumstances, any artifact from the actual ship is pretty rare, but they had some cool ones here. There was some cutlery that was used on the actual tables, and then, this is crazy, this is coal that was actually recovered from the Titanic and what was being used to power the ship as she made her way to New York City. And here's an example of a watertight ship bulkhead door, which theoretically would have been used to section off different parts of the ship so that water couldn't get from one section to another. Unfortunately, on the Titanic, it looked like this. This is the Wheel of Misfortune. We're gonna see what I would have been on the Titanic and if I would have lived or died. So we give it a good spin there. All right, hoping I live. Okay, it looks like I would have been a second-class man, and I did not live. Very depressing. This chart shows you the survivors and fatalities aboard the Titanic, and unfortunately, those that were lost were definitely a much higher number than those saved. Moving on from the Titanic, we have some very famous people portrayed in interesting art. This is JFK, completely made out of keyboard keys. And if you look closely, the letters are all put together to spell out famous quotes from the president himself. But he's not America's only leader here. We also have the one and only Abraham Lincoln, completely made out of bullets. Now, these aren't quite the same bullets they actually used in the Civil War, but I think it gets the message across pretty well. This one was very cool. This is a packing tape portrait of Marilyn Monroe, but what's interesting is how it looks before and after you shine the light through it. Pretty neat. And speaking of light, we have Jessica Simpson done with a light bright. All these different colors and points of light coming together to form one giant source of light, Jessica Simpson. This is a great example of how every tiny little thing can come together to form a much bigger picture. One of my favorite bands has always been the Beatles, so I very much enjoyed seeing this portrait of John Lennon done with broken records. The different colors on there really make it pop. And then following in the music genre, we have Rihanna made with push pins. I honestly can't believe how photorealistic this looks when you back away from it. Definitely doesn't look like, thumbtacks pushed in there. Very, very impressive. And if you're hungry for more celebrities, we have a ketchup portrait of Robert Downey Jr. So in a way, Iron Man happened to sneak in here twice. Let's keep exploring. Now, there are quite a few matchstick sculptures out there, but very few can match this. This is the world's largest matchstick model. This was created with over 4 million matches. It is a huge oil rig. This is called the Cathedral of the Sea, and it took over 15 years to complete. Now, it already looks impressive, but if you come over here, you can actually hit these different buttons and make it move. For example, look at that helicopter over there. I'm going to get that to take off. Rises up and comes back down. You can hit one of these buttons over here. That sounds the alarm so everybody knows stuff is about to move. And then there we go. We got the crane moving on that side. Or you can jump over to this side again. And we can have the big one in the back there. This is very cool. I can't even imagine the patience it takes to do something like this. I am impressed, believe it or not. Rounding us out are 2 more very impressive sculptures. This one is created out of camel bone and was worked on by 35 craftsmen. Even with that many people hard at work, it still took an astonishing 3 months to do every little piece of this. And honestly, their hard work paid off. The detail on here, simply exquisite. And it seems only right that we end with a boat. So here is a gorgeous sculpture of a dragon boat made out of 1,000 pounds of pure jade. When they say that some art is truly priceless, I think things like this are what they're referring to. Well, adventurers, it looks like we got in a little bit over our head, so that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that like button, give us some comments where you want to see us next, and definitely subscribe. Always helps us out. And if you're interested in some bonus content, we have a link to our Patreon down below. Get you a really cool postcard every month and access to bonus episodes and really cool things. But my name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. Thanks for tagging along. See you next time.